welcome, and thank you, Terry. Appreciate it. We're going to spend a few minutes here getting to know each other, so I'll share a little bit of my background as well. But Terry did mention that prior to working with Teachers Development Group, I was a math teacher and an instructional coach in the Tacoma School District. And as we go through this, I'd be happy to share kind of my story, but I just wanted to let you know that I learned about this work in the exact seat that you're sitting in right now. Had an opportunity to be in best practices with Kathy Fendler, was actually the facilitator there. Had a chance to get to know her, do some of the work in my own classroom, do some of the work as an instructional coach, and then over the last few years have kind of transitioned into facilitating some of the work. I'd be happy to answer questions or kind of share that background as we go through the day. You do have a notebook in front of you, and we're going to spend a couple minutes, in just a few minutes, getting to know that notebook. If you've been through best practices before, I'm hoping that you'll see many of the same pieces of research coming through, but maybe some tightening up in a few places, and lots of work that's been done to kind of tie this to the Common Core, as that has become part of what we're responsible for. If you haven't had a chance to yet, if you would grab one of the white index cards that's on the middle of the table, fold it in half, doesn't matter which direction, and write your name on it with one of the dark markers. And then I'm going to ask you to think for just a minute here on your own. I'm going to have you, and I know many of you probably know each other already, but just in case, and for me to get to know you, I'm going to ask you to share your name, your workplace, and your role, what grade levels you work with, and then to think about a positive learning experience that you've had, where you were the learner, and what made it positive for you. If it helps to jot down a couple of notes to yourself, you're more than welcome to do that. I'll have you share with your table group in just a moment. And since we're a small group, I'm going to have a share out whole group as well. There's some sticky notes in your bag if there's something you want to jot down before you share out. But I'll give you a moment to think about that on your own. In a counterclockwise position, counterclockwise direction. Okay? And to share, if you don't overbate your tables, share who you are, what you do, what grades you're working with. Those first few pieces. If you do know everybody at your table, you can kind of skip over those if you need to. But I do want you to share out that positive learning experience that you had when you were the learner and what made it positive. Okay? I'm going to give you about 4 minutes to do this. So that means about a minute per person here at the middle table. The outside tables, you've got a little bit longer amount of time. So if you want to expand a little bit on why it was important or even share a second one, that would be great. But I'll have the person in Renee's position get started.
Geometry or algebra, and of course tests, and it's like they have to submit 8 individual tests essentially. Positive learning experience. I would say my student teaching was pretty positive. I was pretty scared when I was teaching. I had a really terrible mentor from one of my faculty who really just kind of killed my confidence. And my cooperating teacher was really cool, really laid back.
Take about 1 more minute. Make sure everybody's had a chance to share.
Yeah, sure.
1 more minute.
Positive learning experience, but it's kind of like myself.
Oh, you did?
Well, I do the resource, but I'm teaching years ago. So in my music class, not you're like math.
No, you're.
So I'm teaching
And working in the classroom, so I have feel for it. But I have grade levels on LC pre-algebra and algebra, so it's 9 and 2.
Yeah.
Learning experience, positive experience when I did observations. That's awesome. Last year, watching it was really cool. Gave me a pretty good foundation. I wanted to try more elementary, 5th grade.
No, it's probably
Oh, wow.
all right, I'm going to pull us back together.
Really? That was like cool.
Pull us all back together, please. The bar table?
Oh, yeah.
Administration. Administration.
If I can pull us all back together. So a couple of things here. Just want to be really transparent. So as we go through these couple of days and our 2 days in January, I just want to share kind of what I'm thinking about and why I'm doing what I'm doing. And then you might think about whether that's something you would take back to your classroom and do, or whether you might tweak that when you go back to your classroom. So first thing is you might see me walking around with my cell phone out. I use this as a timer. Anybody do that in their classroom? Yeah. So you can slide it into the document camera, you might carry it and walk around. I know personally that time can get away from me. So when I do want to keep it, kind of think about my pacing, I will have the timer out and make sure that I'm kind of keeping track of that. So to see it, if you see it out, that's what I'm doing with it. Second thing, just a quick question. Why might I have had one person start and then told you the direction that I wanted you to go in? What do you think my purpose was?
So that everybody would have a chance to share.
Yeah, absolutely. Wanting to think about the fact I wanted to make sure everybody's voice got out. And I realized that there was different sized groups. So the groups that are smaller had a little bit more time. Also gave a warning as we got close to the end of that time so that if we hadn't been moving around, that we could move along. At the same time, you saw me kind of wandering around, eavesdropping on your conversations or monitoring what was happening and think really hard about what might I do with the group if we got stuck in one spot. Given that this is a little bit of a smaller group, don't know if everybody knows each other around the room, I'm going to ask that we do this kind of whole group. And I'm going to capture some of those ideas about those powerful learning environments or learning experiences up here in a public record that we can continue to refer back to and think about how what was powerful for you in those other experiences could be powerful for you right now and or in your classroom with your students. I'm just going to start over here. Jason, would you get us started, and would you introduce yourself to the group in case somebody doesn't know you, and then share your experience that was powerful?
Jason Patterson, I work at Thunder Mountain. I teach 8th grade algebra and pre-algebra, and probably the positive learning experiences was when people that are presenting or teaching have made it like giving personal feedback.
You want to say anything more about that? Any questions?
I just think it makes you kind of feel important that you're in the room when you're getting that personal feedback.
Yeah. Now I'm going to try to learn names. Matt?
Matt Geener, Thunder Mountain, 7th grade band. Mine was one of my instructors at City U. He was talking. His word was "know your critter," and it was about know who your students are, have that relationship with them, and that's what's going to make your teaching a lot more powerful and meaningful to them, is just having a relationship with your students.
Kyle?
Kyle Tate, work at the high school, resource math, first year, and also tackling student teaching at the same time, so it's been quite the ride. I'm planning a wedding and coaching.
Wow.
That's supposed to start. Well, I haven't really been planning, that's my fiance. Let's be honest. So I LC pre-algebra and algebra, working with 9th through 12th graders. Basically, you're looking at kids that dread math and haven't been successful. So trying to just change that thought process of that it's not that bad, and really kind of pull out life experiences and ways to be successful rather than just focusing on that curriculum. Positive learning experience. Well, one of my most positive ones was observing Andy Nee last year at middle school. Just seeing the way that he kind of ran things, his classroom management, his interaction with the kids, and it really kind of helped me mold, I guess, my philosophies of how I wanted to run a classroom.
So observing others for...
So just, observing others to improve your own teaching skills, I guess.
Ian Bugby.
I work at the high school and I teach Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 Trig. And last year I worked at Thunder Mountain with some of you guys too. What do you got?
Nothing, buddy. Wish you were still there.
Yeah.
Missing you. Just missing you.
All right. A positive learning experience. I said my student teaching was positive. The observing others to improve teaching was obviously part of that. But the cooperating teacher I work with made me feel safe, gave me good constructive criticism. Just was really supportive, and yeah, never put me on the spot. Yeah, and it was just a really positive experience. Helped build me up. And yeah, that's what I got.
I'm Doug, and I'm at EMS, and I teach literacy and math 6, 7, 8. Similar to some others, it's now this year working in other teachers' classrooms. So different organization, improved organization, different groupings, different student talk, and the whole thing.
So some of this.
Yep.
I'm Renee, also at EMS, teaching 6th and 7th grade now. And something that's been powerful for me has been some of the professional development that we've had around the student behavior. And like we had trauma training and just getting kind of an inside view of the things that we see and why we see kids act in certain ways and how we can support them.
I'm Seth Polson. I teach at Thunder Mountain Resource Room, special ed math classes. And I guess my positive learning experience, when I worked on my master's degree, I worked in a small cohort of people, and just having the ability to talk with other people about your learning. And yeah.
Dan, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Dan.
Dan, I'm at 6th grade, Thunder Mountain, and positive learning experience, probably working in our PLCs with Matt and Jason, and we were going through success criteria and learning targets and all that, and having them give honest feedback and give constructive criticism helped me really develop.
Kind of this part here again.
Mhm.
Yep. Seems to be a theme. Great. Steve.
Steve Henry, high school resource special ed. I do the top and the bottom side of LC geometry class, but also a resource we call transition math for the kids that we know are not going to make it into the algebra curriculum mainstream. My positive learning experience was humor. I was at a soccer clinic, and this English guy, I just was got hammered by a shot, and he just made this really funny comment, and so ever since then I remember to not make sense.
Absolutely. Evan, Ginger, did you guys want to add anything?
The first time I went through this training was really powerful for me. Just it really changed the way I think about teaching and challenged some of the ideas that I had. And it just, the thing that made a big difference is seeing it in action.
I guess I'd add one that was a little bit different. It would be, I'd say my best learning experience is when I learned how to golf. I knew what quality work looked like. I had a set of success criteria I could run through in my head to see if I was doing things right. And, I could immediately see if I'd done it right or if I'd done it wrong based on where my ball landed. And I got personal coaching along the way, I guess, when I was making mistakes. So helped me to learn a lot in a really short period of time.
So I heard two things, kind of personal coaching, but also having kind of a goal or success criteria.
And immediate feedback.
Fantastic. Do you want to add anything?
Well, yeah, I was telling Will and Ginger that for the life of me, I cannot remember a mathematics experience as a student that had any kind of real significant impact on me. I always enjoyed mathematics. I was always pretty good at it. Now, granted, I have more of a liberal arts, background, things like that, but maybe I was just in a lot of kind of traditional, typical math classes many years ago, and nothing just really imprinted on me at that time.
So thinking about how if it had been maybe more relevant to you, that it might have been more helpful, was that?
I don't know. I can remember all kinds of elementary experiences and all kinds of middle school and high school experiences, but I can't remember, really.
Yeah.
A mathematics experience. I can't even remember. I remember taking 7th grade algebra, but I can't even remember how far I went in high school, in mathematics. I must have gone a ways.
Absolutely. Anything?
I'm Steve Spielberg. And I kind of dovetail with what Will said. When we went through this training the first time, Kathy Fendler, and you've already modeled it by asking the question, why do you think I did this? Mm-hmm. And so this whole idea of transitioning the role of the teacher into facilitator instead of direct instructor. And so that all sounds good, right, in theory, but then we had the opportunity to practice it using math, which is the one that, I have math phobia from head to toe. And she had us do this problem that had multiple solutions to it. And so I was in a group, and then she was walking around with a clipboard. She had already anticipated the solutions that were possible. And so she was going around to the different tables to see who was doing which solution and whatnot. And then that facilitated who she called on. And she called on probably the entry-level problem solving first and then worked her way up. My table was the entry-level problem solving. So this is why it impacted me, because I had that much information to be able to solve that problem. And as she went through the process of more sophisticated solutions, I literally understood the math at a deeper level just by the way she constructed the feedback or the share out portion. So that intentionality behind even how you have kids share out was super powerful for me.
Absolutely. So we're going to do some of those exact same things today. So if you've been a part of best practices before, there are things that you're going to see that are going to stay the same because they are coming out of the research around how students learn mathematics or how students learn in general. And we're going to continue to work on those. So as we're going through here, if there's pieces of that you're seeing that are the same, please don't hesitate to call them out. And I'll be as transparent as I can be along the way. If you're ever wondering, well, why is she doing that? Please ask, because that's part of this process as well, is to think together about what we're doing and why we're doing it and how it can support students in the classroom. So thank you for not only introducing yourself to each other, but sharing out something that was powerful for you in your learning. And I want us to keep an eye on these ideas as we go through today and tomorrow and in our days in January and as we go back to the classrooms to think about how can we use these same ideas when we're here together, and then how do these same ideas go back to your classroom to make sure that we're supporting students and having powerful learning experiences. So just real quickly, if you would grab a sticky note from one of the pads in the bags, and if you're low on supplies, don't hesitate to let me know. I've got a few more bags over here, and I'd be happy to put some other things out. In fact, small groups, so we'll just drop a second one in case you need it. And on that sticky note, if you would make a prediction based on your own learning experiences over time, what we just shared out here, what are 3 things that you think would be big ideas or really important in how students learn mathematics? Make a quick prediction and write it down on your sticky note. Again, it could be something we just talked about, or it could be something else that you were thinking about in terms of a powerful learning experience. And when you're done, if you would just slide it into the front pocket of your notebook or attach it to the front pocket of your notebook, whichever is easier for you. And we're going to come back to this as we go through some of our work together. But I want to give you a chance to capture those predictions now, and then we can come back and check in around them in a little bit. While we're also thinking about a couple of logistics, I'm going to ask you to add something to your name tag. So you put your name on it originally, but if you would, in smaller letters or words down below, write in the school that you work at and what you do there, that would be great. So adding the school you work at and the grades that you work with or your role. And then if there's anything that you want me to pay attention to, or something that you want me to know about you or your needs, feel free to write a note on the inside of your name tag. And at lunchtime, I'll come by and take a peek and kind of read through those, and then we'll also take a look at the end of the day to see if there's anything that I need to be aware of. If something comes up during the day and you're thinking, I want her to know that at lunchtime or at the end of the day, please feel free to open it up and jot a note. Okay. I'll also ask you to write any notes on your important moments at the end where you give me a little bit of feedback. All right, so let's jump into some of the work that we're going to be doing. Good morning. So in your notebook, if you would open to page 7, and this is your notebook, so please make notes in it, please write on it, whatever's going to be helpful to you. And if I could get a volunteer who would read the first bullet under the purpose, where it says together we will develop. Who would read the first bullet? Thanks, Matt.
Research-based lens for assessing the extent to which their teaching practices foster meaningful, appropriate, and mathematically productive student engagement in mathematics content and mathematical practices that are aligned with the Common Core state standards for mathematics content and for mathematical practice.
And then a volunteer to read the second bullet. Thanks, Doug.
Strategies and plans for implementing teaching practices that align with research regarding how students learn mathematics, that produce increased and equitable mathematical understanding and achievement by all students, and that foster a culture of rigorous learning in which all students see themselves as capable mathematicians who can achieve.
So those are the overarching purposes for our time together, these 2 days and then the 2 days in January, and then anytime we get a chance to be together as we're working on some of the studio experiences. I want to give you a minute here to also look down through the goals, because that helps to kind of break down what those purposes might be representing. So if you would take just a moment to read down through the 6 big bullets under the goals, and feel free to mark, and it could be a highlight, it could be an underline, it could be a star, anything that's jumping out to you as being really important there. All right, I'm going to pull us back together. So just real quickly, want to think about these goals. How many people chose the first one as their key one? Mathematically productive teaching practices that align with how students learn mathematics and the Common Core state standards for mathematical practice. Okay, fantastic. So just, and we're going to continue to talk about this, but just real quickly want to point out that we have our habits of mind and our habits of interaction back here, and we're going to circle back around and we're going to spend some time with these today. But we're going to think about how we can use these as tools in our classroom to help students think about how they're going to engage in the mathematics and how they're going to engage with each other so that the outcome is success with the standards for mathematical, the standards for mathematical practice. How about the second goal, questioning strategies? Yep, there's a few of those. How about research-based tools that support intensive reflection? Collection metacognition? How about high cognitive demand tasks? Yep. Okay. Respectful and engaging classroom culture. Okay. And how about an action plan? All right. So I had eavesdropped on the table over here, and I heard Steve say that he was choosing or marked the action plan. Steve, would you talk to us about why you picked that one?
I just have a whole bookcase of notebooks that sit there, and I've written in them, and it was really meaningful at the time, but they weren't, they didn't stick. And having an action plan makes sense to actually use it. That's about it.
Fantastic. So when he said that, it caught my attention, because, I mean, I'll just be honest with you, when I start out with these courses, almost never does someone pick the action plan. It's oftentimes the other 5 that people will gravitate towards, but that action plan is really important. So although it might not have jumped off as your most important one, and I did ask you to raise your hand around the one that you thought was most important, we want to make sure that we're thinking about how do we take this experience that we're having here together back to our classroom and do something with it. So we want this to be more than a sit and get. If you just come and sit here and think really hard for a couple days and then don't do anything with it, I'm not sure that there was a big bang for the buck there. So we want to think really hard about what do we do as we go back to our classroom on Wednesday. Okay. If you would turn your page over to page 8, you'll see a very busy set of circles. These are actually really, really important in thinking about how the work that we do for and with students is embedded and at the heart of everything that we're going to be talking about the next couple of days. So right down here in the very center circle are the standards for mathematical practice. This is what we want for students. This is the goal. This is how we want them to be able to do mathematics. This is how we want them to think about mathematics. This is how we want them to work together around mathematics. So in order to support kids in doing that, we're going to be thinking about some thinking routines that we can support students in taking on. And we're going to talk about the habits of mind and habits of interaction as we go through our work today and tomorrow. Stepping back up then, so what do we do as teachers to help kids be able to engage in the habits of mind and habits of interaction so that they have success with the Common Core State Standards? And we're going to be using some of those mathematically productive teaching routines that are listed on the wall. And we're going to break those down, and we're going to think about them a little bit at a time over these 2 days and our 2 days in January. Okay. We're going to think about the research about how students learn mathematics, and that's the basis where all of this work is coming from. We have it's fantastic to have our administrators here with us to think about the leadership piece of this and how do leaders support teachers in doing this with students. And then we're actually sitting out here in this far arching circle right now in professional development. And we're going to continue to think about how we take this professional development opportunity, come in a little bit to think about what do we do as facilitators of learning to support students in thinking and engaging in the mathematics so they have achievement in mathematics. So that's kind of the embedding of the work. And we'll keep coming back to this circle because all of those key elements are right there, even though it's a little bit of a busy circle when you first glance at it. If you turn over to page 9, I'm just going to call out a few things here, and we'll continue to come back to it. But on page 9, the top chunk of it, or the top third of the page, is around effective mathematics classrooms. And we're going to be thinking throughout our time together about what we do. And I pulled out some of those key words up here. So effective mathematics classrooms are classrooms where there's mathematical sense-making, reasoning, and understanding happening. Where there's a mathematical culture of effort and growth. Where we're using worthwhile mathematical tasks. And where the teaching is mathematically productive. So we're supporting kids in taking on the habits of mind and habits of interaction in these ways. And we'll keep coming back to that. The next chunk down is around how students learn mathematics, and there's some key pieces that are being pulled out. And this kind of it's behind the coffee over here, but if you were to look at the poster, it is those same 5 pieces that are listed in the middle of page 9. And we're going to continue to think about how cognitive demand plays into the classroom, how using routines and relationships and norms in the classroom can support kids, thinking a lot about discourse, especially today and tomorrow. And then down below are the powerful mathematical practice. And if you look at the bullets at the very bottom underneath that, they are the standards for mathematical practice that the Common Core calls out. So in the end, we're working really hard to help students in their achievement in mathematics. And one of those pieces that we can look for in terms of evidence is how they perform on the assessment in the spring. So with that in mind, we're basically keeping the Common Core standards at the center of what we do and thinking really hard about how we support students in that success. One more thing before we dig into some mathematics together, and that is to just give you a quick orientation of the notebook that you have in front of you. So in the very front pocket of your notebook, there are 2 pieces of purple paper that hopefully are there and hopefully already hold pens for you. And if you would pull those out, and I'm going to ask you to insert those into your notebook in a couple of places to help break your notebook into 3 parts. So if you would go, so you're gonna be about 2/3 of the way through your notebook when you put the first one in, and you're looking to place it right after page 145. So the first chunk of your notebook is numbered consecutively. It's gonna be put in right before a reading that's titled Discourse That Promotes Conceptual Understanding. By placing that first piece of paper there, you are breaking the first part of the notebook into the class work that we're going to be able to work on together and separating it from the reading section. If you flip through the reading section, there's about 4 articles there, followed by a copy of the Standards for Mathematical Practice and a diagram from Carol Dweck's work. And if you go right behind Carol Dweck's picture of growth and fixed mindset and stick the second piece of paper in there, it should go right in front of a consumable page that says How Math Teaching Matters Seminar Consumables. So as we're working on things in the notebook, please feel free to write right on your notebook pages. If there's something that you would like to have as a fresh copy, it's a good chance that it's in your consumable section, and if it's not, I'd be happy to get you a clean copy of it. So please don't hesitate to write right in your notebook whatever you need to do or whatever you want to do to help yourself make sense of things. While we're in that consumable section, so that very last section, if you would go to page 5 of your consumable section, there's a piece of paper that's entitled Important Moment 1, and I would ask you to pop it right out of your notebook. Go ahead and take it right out. Put your name at the top. And then I'm going to ask you to keep that handy throughout the day. So anytime you hear something and you're thinking, oh, that could be really important, or I don't want to forget that, or whatever the cause might be, feel free to write it right on this important moment. Pull it out from wherever it happens to be. I will also try to stop periodically and ask you to take a minute to reflect. But if I don't stop or you need to write something down, please feel free to pull it out and write on it whenever you need to. The form is set up in a specific way, and if you look at the left-hand side, it says important moment. An important moment could be a new understanding, it could be an aha you're having, it could be a reminder of something that's important, it could be a place where you're asking yourself a question. Whatever that important moment is to you, that's what the left-hand side is designed for. On the right-hand side, where it says implications and possibilities for my practice, that would give you a place to jot down how might this important moment that I'm having impact what I'm doing in my classroom or in my practice. So it could be that you're writing down an important moment over here, something maybe about discourse or structuring it a certain way, and your implication is that when you go back to your classroom, you're going to try structuring it in a certain way or using a certain protocol that we're trying on. That's the way it's designed. With that said, I would encourage you to use this in a way that is helpful to you. I'll be upfront that I'm going to ask you at the end of the day if I can borrow these overnight. It gives me a chance to think about what you're thinking about. So I'll pick them up, read through them tonight, and I'll give them back to you first thing tomorrow morning. But they are yours and they are your notes, so use this form in any way that makes the most sense to you. I just wanted you to know what the design purpose was, and then you decide how you're going to use it. All right. Okay. So if you turn to page 18 in your notebook, we're going to jump into some mathematics here. We're going to get a chance to think about some math together. So page 18 has just a short little blurb at the top. It says instructional programs for pre-kindergarten through grade 12 should enable all students to understand the meanings of operations and how they relate to one another. So whether we're in elementary school and thinking about working with whole numbers, maybe we're in middle school thinking about working with integers or rational numbers, we're in high school thinking about how we might work with expressions or complex numbers, we want to think about the importance of having an understanding of the operations that we're using, not just having a procedure to go through. So when you think about the 4 operations, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, which do you think are the most slippery for students? Or maybe where students have the most soft spots?
Division.
Division? Okay. And what was subtraction? Yeah. So with that in mind, what do you think we might work on? that we're gonna think a little bit about some subtraction and some division as well. So thinking about how we develop ours, or maybe really think then about how we support students and developing their understanding as we go through some of the math together. So I'm gonna ask you to use the tiles that are on your desk. So there's a bag of colored tiles, and if you're running short, be sure to let me know, and I'd be glad to get some more out or to share some from the other tables. I'm going to ask you to take some private reasoning time. So just real quickly, want to make a connection to the habits of interaction. So over here on the wall of the habits of interaction, habits of mind, we're going to continue to circle back around to it. One of those is private reasoning time. The purpose in asking you to engage in private reasoning time, the purpose for asking students to engage in private reasoning time, is to make sure you have a chance to think about the mathematics for yourself before you jump into a conversation. Okay? Some people can start to process right away. Some people need to think about it a little bit. We want to make sure that we give everybody access to the problem by giving them a chance to think about it on their own. So I'm going to ask you to take a little bit of private reasoning time here and to use those tiles to represent this particular problem. 8 subtract 5 equals 3. I want you to be thinking about what is the meaning of this operation. Is there more than one meaning? And for each different meaning that you're thinking about, please create a visual model using those tiles that illustrates your thinking about the meaning. So create a visual. What's the meaning of this particular operation of subtraction, and is there more than one meaning? And I will have you share with a partner in just a couple of minutes, but I want you to take a little bit of time on your own first, and then we'll think about it together. So I'm going to press here just a little bit. Okay, private reasoning time is you thinking on your own. Okay, you're not engaging with anybody else at this point. Okay. And if you have one meaning, try to come up with a second one or a third way. One meaning, see if you can come up with a second meaning. We'll take about one more minute and we'll share. No problem.
What's your second meaning?
I'm going to have you share with a partner, but I'm going to ask you to do this in a specific way. I'm going to ask that we use a listen and compare protocol. So in just a moment, I'll identify you either as the A person or the B person in your partnership. But essentially, we're going to have partner A go first this time. You could switch that around, and next time I'll do it the other way so that partner B gets to go first. But partner A is going to explain their thinking around their model. What meaning of subtraction are they representing? And I'll actually, once we talk about this, I'll back it up so you have that in front of you. Okay? I'm going to talk about their reasoning, their model, the meaning of subtraction that they're representing. Partner B is going to be listening to understand. Means you're not talking at that point. Okay? If there's something that's on your mind that you're afraid you're going to forget, while your partner is sharing, please feel free to write it down, jot down that question, but we want to give partner A that entire airtime. And even if that means that they stop talking, think for a moment, and then continue on, that is their time to be thinking about it and to be sharing about it. We'll call time, we'll flip it around. Partner B will have an opportunity to share their thinking. They can share their model, the meaning of subtraction, or if they have more than one meaning of subtraction, they can share both of those in that airtime. At that point, partner A is listening to understand. Right? And again, jotting down a question if you're afraid you're going to forget. Once partner B's time is done, then we'll make sure that you have a chance to talk together about how your ideas, in this case how your models, your meanings of subtraction, are the same or different. And that's really important. So thinking about the purpose of this protocol, we want to make sure that everybody's voice is honored, that it's equitable, and that we have this time here at the end for you to think together. So I'm going to break you into, you're already in pairs, but I'm going to say you're A and B. Okay. And then coming down this side, Kyle, if you would be A, E, and B. Let's do A and B. Okay. Over here we've got a trio, so we're going to do A, B, and C. And just to be transparent, just like in the classroom, you don't always get kids who show up in pairs. So sometimes you have a trio. So I'm going to just be transparent as we go through this protocol, that I want to make sure that my partnership here with 3, that everybody's voice is heard. So as we get to that bottom part and our duos go into talking with each other, I'm going to make sure I come by and that Dan gets an opportunity to share his thinking. And if we could do A and B, and A and B. All right, question?
Yeah. So in using this time, say you give like a minute, and you're noticing a lot that the students or a certain group of students only use like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Or they use 15 seconds, or they just quickly explain it and they're done. So I think that's what I struggle with the most, is that when you're given that time, then all of a sudden you hear either they talk about it real quickly, or they just move on to something completely.
So it's a great question. And again, these are the questions I appreciate being asked, because we want to think about not only what are we doing here, but what happens when you go back to your classroom. So just a couple of quick ideas. You might not say the exact amount of time that you're going to give students. So I might say right now, I'm going to give you a little bit of time, but I haven't said how much. So then I can also, as I'm monitoring, I'm also listening for that engagement. And if I get the lull across the room, and we've all had that happen where it's just kind of quiet, I might just stop it and flip it around right then, even if it's only been 30 seconds. And in my mind, I thought I might need a minute. Same thing might happen the other way. I might have 45 seconds on my mind, but if I hear all of my pairs continuing to talk, well, and I'm sorry, I'm going to rephrase that. I hear all of my partners continuing to talk, I might slide another 10 seconds, 15 seconds in there. But I also would think about how you build the norms in the classroom in terms of that this is really important. And if you and I are partners and I stop talking, it's really important to give me that time, because I might be thinking about something and then need to say something else rather than jumping in with some other conversation. So part of it is helping the kids understand why we're doing what we're doing. But you might not say the exact time, because that gives you a little bit of flexibility and being a little bit flexible with how long you continue to go. Okay, so we are going to start with partner A in this case. Welcome. Partner A. Partner A, you're going to begin. I'm going to give you some time to share with your partner. Partner B, you are listening to understand. No talking, partner B. Okay, ready? Begin.
All right, I'll be A. Okay. I need to wait. Okay. So what I did is I did a total of 8. Illustrated 1 and then if you take 5 away, 5 out of that being represented in red, then 3 left over as a buffer. And so it just illustrates the model.
Visualize and see what each one is. If I take that,
The other one was adding a negative, so this was positive, and this was my negative, so it would be like adding negative.
All right, partner A, finish your sentence. So to be really honest, it could be that I've just called you back together. And so in the classroom, after you do this a few times, you might not stop and debrief in the middle. First time through, I'm going to stop periodically here. I might have called time before everybody was completely finished. And that's okay too, as long as I've gotten some of those initial ideas out. Because remember that bottom step of the protocol is that they're gonna get a chance to talk with their partner. So if there was one more thing they wanted to say, a second meeting that they didn't get to, it's not that that opportunity is lost, it might just come up in that compare part. Okay? But again, trying to gauge what's happening across an entire classroom or across this particular group. But I'm gonna switch over to partner B. Partner B, I'm gonna ask you to share your model, what meaning of subtraction it represents, whether you have a second meaning of subtraction or even a third meaning of subtraction, and how that model represents that. And partner A, you are listening to understand. Okay? Go ahead.
So the next one I did was add negatives, right? There's 8, cancel out.
So that's, I mean, that's the
Negative, positive,
I guess you could think of 5 as a negative 5.
Mm-hmm.
and you're left with
Match
positive.
those up.
What you said, yeah, got it.
So choosing-
Got 8 apples.
Adding negative 5.
How many of them?
Row. 5, 7, 8 comes down in the river.
All right, partner B, if you would finish your thought. So I want to give you a chance, go back to the structure. So we've been through partner A had an opportunity to share, partner B had an opportunity to share. Now we're to the point where you're going to get an opportunity to think about how your ideas are the same or different, how your models are the same or different, how the meaning of subtraction is the same or different. I just want to make sure that we call it, that's a really important place to go, because we don't want, it's not just about the sharing, it's then about the comparing. Okay? So I'm going to give you a chance to talk with your partner about how things were the same or different.
So the first one was the same because it was 8 positives, similar to 5 positives.
Yeah.
So 8 total, which was the same idea.
The 0,